So because Dana painted himself into a corner in the end of season 2, end of the world, he had to figure out a way to get out. And so the title to the first episode of season 3 is Hell is What You Make It. And so our 2 protagonists, if they can, this is a little esoteric, but it's the way we cut it together. If they can chart their way through their own hells, they can make it back to their lives. And for a 21-minute and 35-second, half-hour horror comedy, that's pretty ambitious stuff. And why not? It's great. It's great. And then Dana gave Stan this uber 8-episode arc that if you want to defeat evil, which in this case is Eccles, if you want to defeat evil, you got to find a bigger evil and let a little in. And he traced it back to the United States, getting in bed with Stalin during World War II. Stalin goes on to kill 40 million of his own people, but you don't beat Hitler without Stalin. And so Stan decides, well, if that was good enough for the United States, it's good enough for me. So he now will try to find evil's boss and get in bed with evil's boss. And that's insanely great. And fun.
So is Stan now fully accepted that his wife is gone and we're not going to be following that anymore?
Yes.
Okay.
And so because he failed, by his estimate, to bring her back in that time travel sequence, I think the takeaway for Stan and what Dana and I decided was this guy has to recalibrate. And for a stubborn donkey like Stan to recalibrate, that goes against everything that he doesn't recalibrate. There's a certain way of doing things. It's almost like a meter. And so Stan, because he failed to get Claire, now has to question everything that was true. And that's impossible for him. So call action and shoot that shit. Shoot Stan questioning everything he's done in his life, which he can't do. But he's going to have to. If he's going to defeat evil, find a bigger evil and let a little in. That's good stuff. That seeds the field lusciously.
Now Stan is sort of like, he seems still more serious while all these crazy monsters and things are happening. He's the one that remains sort of level-headed. Like,
well, when Dana brought me this script 3.5 years ago now, I thought the script was great. I thought it had a million different ways to go. I told him, I think, what you put on the page, you're missing something here that you put on the page. And he said, what? And I said, you're not giving Stan a chance to reconcile his loss. Because we meet this protagonist who in the first 4 or 5 minutes of the show, we realize his wife's been murdered, or she's dead. He's lost his job. And he just wants to sit in his Barca Lounger and watch the History Channel and not be bothered. And I said, you're missing what connects all of us. And I don't care if you're on the playground and you're 5 and someone takes your ball. Loss is part of the human condition. And I said, you gotta dig in. I want to dig in. Otherwise, I want to do it. Otherwise, it's just grumpy Archie Bunker chasing bitches. Who cares? I said, we got to explore Stan's loss. And true to his word, he has for 3 seasons explored Stan's loss with me. And that doesn't have to be Debbie Downer, but because Dana can write jokes and I can turn jokes and he knows monsters backwards. I said, and all that's well and good, but what will separate the show is Stan's exploration and him reconciling loss as best he can, because he may not be able to do it. And I said, that's what you put on the page, and I'm just seeing it, but you're missing it. You're not cultivating it. And so we have.
I like it all just sounds so collaborative and like such a really great set. Cast seems to, really feel like they can work and sketch things out together.
Well, as one of the producers on the show, I want the set to be a place where actors are safe, and I mean creatively and physically, and creatively. But I also want them to say what Dana put on the page because it's really good. And like same with Scrubs, like when you got a script from Billy Lawrence, it was in your best interest to say what he wrote. And then on take 3 and 4, you can sprinkle some of your special magic on it. But you want to say what's on the page. And so when you have a Dana Gould or a Billy Lawrence, you want to say what's on the page. And so once you do that and you crush what Dana put on the page, then you can have a couple of takes to do your special, but you got to say what's on the page first. And I've made that clear to the actors, and because all of them are really skilled improvisational actors. And that's all fine, but what you have to remember is that if you add a 15-second improv addendum onto the end of a scene, the show's 21 minutes and 35 seconds. So, and Dana always writes an A, B, C, and sometimes a little C, almost D story. So those are 4 stories that are going to be woven into 21 minutes and 35 seconds. You can't add 15-second addendums on to scene. It doesn't work. And so while some of that stuff's brilliant, we'll send it to you. It's not going to be on TV. But I want the actors to be able to exercise, because every once in a while there's a really clean little nugget that's perfect. And I don't want the actors to not be able to do that. And so I want them to be able to flourish. Always. As long as you say what Dana put on the page.
So how does this experience working for IFC versus creating like a network show, is it any different? Or
I've produced 5 films, and this is the first TV show I've produced. The big difference is the premium is on pace and speed. Because there's no money and there's no time, and I know everybody says that, but we shoot 8 fucking episodes in 5 weeks, which is preposterous. And so that can either be an exercise in mediocrity, because you're being a supplicant to pace and executing the pages instead of doing the pages great. You're just executing them, and that would be a crime. And so we found a way to be able to explore them as much as we want within the context of a 3.5 day per episode shoot, which is impossible, but it turns out it is possible, because the trade-off for getting no time and no money to shoot the show is Dana and I have almost complete creative autonomy, which is fantastic. So we can make the hero this guy who only wants to do the right thing so he doesn't have to hear about it. He doesn't care about the accolades or that it is the right thing to do. He just doesn't want to hear about it. That's the protagonist. It's great. I want to follow that guy. So the trade-off is creative autonomy. Not complete creative autonomy, but an enormous, the show is pretty subversive, and that's the way Dan and I want it.
We heard a lot of, ideas that we'll see in the 3rd season, homage episodes and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about what we'll see and some guest stars and things?
Dana knows the mythology of horror and TV like a savant. And so I wasn't as familiar with the X-Files. I just missed it. It was just when I was doing movies and stuff, and I just missed it. It was right in that, for me, it was right in that area when I was like between 25 and 35, and maybe you don't watch as much TV as you did in college, and now you're making a living and you're working 18-hour days, and I kind of missed the X-Files, even though I'm friends and neighbors with David. And so he had to help me out with a lot of the backstory in the X-Files. I watched Kolchak because I was a kid, and then there's kind of puppets who are witches this year, and that's a little bit of a tip of the cap to Chucky, sort of, although they're not like Chucky. And so Dana has this whole college of almost an encyclopedic knowledge of horror and scary stuff that he sprinkles into the show. And the people who watch the show love it because they know it as well as he does. And so it's been a source of huge enjoyment for people for some stuff I'm not even familiar with. But Stan doesn't need to be. He can operate outside of that. John, then I dive into it and find out what the hell we're doing. But Stan doesn't need to know all this stuff. He just wants to get back to his chair and watch the History Channel. It's great. I can't wait for you guys to see season 3. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Thank you
coming
so
out.
much.